My name is Daniel. I'm 36 years old, and last summer, my wife and I made what we thought was the best decision of our lives. We left behind the noise of our cramped city apartment for something better, a weathered old house in the countryside. We pictured our children, Emily and Oliver, running barefoot through the grass, chasing fireflies at dusk, breathing air that didn't taste of smog and car exhaust. The house was far from perfect. Its walls creaked, the wooden floors complained under every step, and the garden had been left to grow wild. Still, we saw beauty in it, a chance for renewal, a safe childhood for our kids. For a few days, it was exactly that. Emily's laughter filled the yard. Oliver's small hands were always clutching sticks he called swords. My wife tended the overgrown roses while I tried to fix the broken shutters. We were exhausted, but happy. Then the children began to say things. At first, we thought it was nothing but overactive imaginations. Emily told us someone sat at the edge of her bed at night. Oliver whispered that he'd seen a man in a wide-brimmed hat standing in the hallway, watching him without a sound. We exchanged nervous smiles. Stress, we said. Moving to a new place can unsettle children. But as night fell again, their fear spread to us. I stayed with them that evening, lying between their beds. The board game we played earlier still lay scattered on the carpet. Their small hands gripped my arms as if I might vanish if they let go. Eventually, they drifted into uneasy sleep. It was near midnight when the sound woke me. A scratching above us, faint but deliberate. I tilted my head. Dust fell from the ceiling boards, sprinkling my chest and pillow. The scratching grew louder, more insistent, like fingernails clawing at wood. The children stirred. Emily whimpered. Oliver buried his face against my side. "Stay here," I whispered, though my voice shook. The ladder to the attic groaned as I pulled it down. Darkness poured from a square opening above, thick and stale. Armed with only a flashlight, I climbed. The air smelled of rot and burnt wood. My light swept across cardboard boxes, broken furniture, and then, arranged carefully in the center of the room, I saw them. Toys. Old dolls with cracked porcelain faces, stuffed animals singed at the edges, a wooden train missing wheels. They were ancient, wrong, as though they had belonged to children long gone. And they weren't scattered. They formed a circle. At the center of that circle was a small photo album. I picked it up, my fingers trembling. Inside were faded photographs. Children smiling on the porch. Children playing in the very garden I had mowed that morning. But as I turned the pages, the images grew darker. Eyes scribbled out with black paint. Faces scratched away until they were only smudges. And at the bottom of the last page, scrawled in ink that bled through the paper, was a message. They must never leave this house. That was when I heard it. A laugh. High-pitched, breathless, echoing in the dark. A child's laugh. But I had climbed to the attic alone. The sound froze me where I stood. That laugh, sharp, quick, playful, didn't belong in the emptiness of the attic. It seemed to come from everywhere at once, bouncing off the low ceiling and slanted beams. "Emily," I whispered before I could stop myself, though I knew she was asleep downstairs. My flashlight trembled in my grip. I spun the beam across the room, slicing through dust and cobwebs. The toys lay motionless in their circle. The photo album slipped from my hand, landing with a dull thud. The laughter stopped. For a moment, there was silence. Then, a single wooden block rolled across the attic floor, as if nudged by an unseen hand. It stopped at the edge of my shoe. My throat went dry. I backed away, forcing my legs to move toward the ladder. A prickle ran down my spine, as though something waited just beyond the flashlight's glow, watching me retreat. I didn't dare look back. When my feet finally touched the floor of the children's room, Emily and Oliver were both sitting upright in their beds, wide-eyed. "You heard it, Daddy," Emily said in a small, trembling voice. Oliver nodded. His lips quivered. He doesn't like when you touch his things. I crouched between them, pulling them close, though my own hands shook as badly as theirs. "There's no one here," I lied, my voice too quick, too thin. "It's just an old house making noises." But Emily only stared past me, toward the open attic hatch. Her eyes followed something I couldn't see. That night, none of us slept. The next morning, the sunlight made the house seem less threatening. My wife brewed coffee in the kitchen, humming softly, unaware of what had unfolded while she slept. I almost convinced myself it had been a dream, until I noticed the footprints. Tiny, ash-colored prints smeared across the hallway floor, leading from the ladder to the children's room. Small like a child's bare feet, but narrower, bonier. I scrubbed them away before my wife could notice. But Emily had seen. She tugged at my sleeve and whispered, "They come down at night." Her words chilled me more than the laughter, because she hadn't said it. She'd said they. That day, I tried to pretend nothing was wrong. I fixed a loose shutter, trimmed part of the wild hedge, and forced myself to believe the house was nothing more than timber, nails, and history. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that every corner watched us, that the house itself was waiting. By evening, the unease had spread. Emily refused to go upstairs alone. Oliver wouldn't even cross the hallway without clutching someone's hand. My wife noticed, of course. "What's going on with them?" she asked, frowning as she tucked the children into bed. "They're just nervous," I said quickly. Too quickly. I couldn't bring myself to tell her what I'd found in the attic. The toys, the photographs, the laughter. Not yet. Later, as we lay in our own room, my wife's breathing slowed into sleep. I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, listening. And that was when I heard it. Faint whispers threading through the walls. At first I thought it was the wind sneaking through cracks. But the longer I listened, the clearer it became. Voices. High, childish voices, overlapping, indistinct, like a group of children reciting secrets through the plaster. I got up and pressed my ear against the wall. The words came sharper. "They can't leave, stay with us, play with us." I stumbled back, my heart racing. Then silence, as if they knew I had heard. The next morning, Oliver wouldn't eat his cereal. He pushed the spoon away and whispered, "They were in my room last night." I forced a calm smile. "Who, buddy?" "The children," he said. His small hands tightened around the edge of the table. "They said if we try to leave, they'll keep us forever." Emily looked up from her bowl. "They told me that too." My wife frowned. "Daniel, what are they talking about?" I couldn't answer, because in that moment, I realized something terrifying. The whispers I'd heard in the walls weren't just mine to hear. The children had heard them too. That night, I made a choice. I wasn't going to sleep. I brewed coffee and sat in the hallway, positioned where I could see both kids' bedroom doors and the pull-down ladder to the attic. My wife thought I was being paranoid, but she didn't protest. She begun noticing the change too. The way shadows in the house seemed to linger too long. The way the children jumped at sound she hadn't heard. The hours dragged. Midnight came, and the house settled into silence, so heavy it felt alive. I kept my eyes on the ceiling, waiting for the scratching to start again. It didn't. Instead, I heard soft footsteps. Not above, but in the hallway with me. I gripped the flashlight and turned. He was standing at the far end of the corridor. A man, tall, impossibly thin, dressed in dark clothing, with a wide-brimmed hat that cast his face into shadow. He stood perfectly still, hands at his sides, head tilted slightly as if studying me. My breath caught in my throat. "Who are you?" I managed to whisper. He didn't move. For a long, agonizing moment, we stared at each other. My grip tightened on the flashlight. Then I blinked, and he was gone. The hallway was empty. Behind me, Emily screamed. I burst into her room. She was sitting upright in bed, tears streaming down her cheeks, pointing to the corner. "He was here," she sobbed. "The man in the hat. He was watching me." Oliver had climbed into her bed, his face buried against her shoulder, trembling. I pulled them both into my arms, scanning the room. Empty. Nothing but shadows. But I knew. What I had seen wasn't a trick of exhaustion or imagination. The man was real, and he wasn't just haunting the attic anymore. He was moving through the house. The next morning, I tried to explain it to my wife. She looked at me with a mixture of disbelief and fear. "Daniel, stop," she said sharply. "You're scaring them even more. There's no man. This house is old, and you're tired. That's all." But when I mentioned the hat, Emily's spoon clattered to the table. She stared at her mother with wide, desperate eyes. "He's real, Mommy," she whispered. "And he said, we belong to him now." After that night, I stopped pretending this was only in the children's heads. Something was inside the house with us, something that wanted them. But my wife, she clung to denial. She tried to distract the kids with board games, long walks outside, baking cookies. For a while, it almost worked. In daylight, the house looked like nothing more than an old building with bad wiring and creaky beams. Then came the night the house finally touched us. It began with Oliver's scream. I was halfway down the stairs when I heard it. Raw, panicked, unlike anything I'd ever heard from him before. I burst into his room and found him thrashing in bed, his tiny hands clawing at the sheets. Emily was beside him, sobbing, shouting, "Let go of him! Let go!" I grabbed Oliver, pulling him upright. His pajama sleeve slid down, and my heart stopped. On his arm, from wrist to elbow, were 4 deep scratches. Long, thin, red welts as if someone, or something, had raked sharp nails across his skin. "Daddy," he pulled me. Oliver cried. He tried to take me under the bed. I dropped to my knees and yanked the bed skirt up. Nothing, just dust and toys. But the air beneath the frame was ice cold, as though winter lived there. That night, none of us slept. My wife sat rocking Oliver, whispering prayers she hadn't spoken in years. Emily wouldn't stop staring at the window, convinced the man in the hat was outside watching. At dawn, I checked again. The scratches were still there. Not fading, not like a dream. Real. Later, while my wife tended to Oliver, I went back up to the attic. I don't know why. Maybe anger, maybe desperation. The circle of toys was still there. Only this time, the photo album lay open on the floor. It was turned to a picture I hadn't seen before. For children, sitting at the dining table in the same house, their smiles frozen. But across their arms were scratches, exactly like the ones now carved into Oliver's skin. Beneath the photo, a message was scrawled in the same black ink. The house always takes them back. For days, my wife refused to accept what was happening. The scratches on Oliver's arm. She told herself he'd done them in his sleep. Emily's stories, she insisted they were just dreams. Even when I described the man in the hat standing in the hallway, she said nothing, her lips pressed into a hard, pale line. But denial can only last so long. It was nearly midnight when it happened. We were in our bedroom, the children finally asleep between us because they refused to stay alone anymore. My wife had just blown out the bedside candle when a noise came from the corner of the room. Not footsteps, not scratching. Something worse. Breathing. Long, steady inhalations dragging across the dark, too deep to belong to a child. I reached for the flashlight. The beam cut through the room, slicing into shadows. And that's when we saw him. The man in the hat. He stood in the corner, taller than I remembered, his face hidden beneath the brim. His shoulders rose and fell with that unnatural, rasping breath. He didn't move. He only stood, watching. My wife froze. Her nails dug into my arm. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You see him too?" The moment she said it, the air in the room shifted. A violent gust slammed the window, open though the glass hadn't broken. Papers, clothes, even the curtains whipped into the air. The children screamed as the man's shadow stretched across the floor, long and crooked, reaching toward their beds. I lunged forward, placing myself between him and the kids, shouting, "Get out!" My voice cracked. The words sounded weak. The shadow only crept closer. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the chaos stopped. The curtains fell limp. The window slammed shut. And the man was gone. Silence. My wife clutched Oliver and Emily, her face as white as chalk. She met my eyes, and for the first time, there was no denial. No excuses. Only terror. "He's real," she whispered. "Oh my God, he's real." The morning after my wife finally saw him, we made a decision. We had to leave. There was no more pretending, no more waiting for things to get better. The children were pale with exhaustion, their eyes ringed with shadows from sleepless nights. Oliver refused to let go of my hand. Emily wouldn't speak at all. We packed quickly, bags half-zipped, clothes stuffed into garbage sacks. My wife kept glancing at the windows as though expecting the man in the hat to appear at any second. By noon, we had the car loaded. I carried Oliver while Emily clung to her mother. The house seemed unnaturally quiet, as if holding its breath. "Don't look back," I muttered as we hurried down the path. Just get in the car. We climbed in. I jammed the key into the ignition. The engine coughed, once, twice, but didn't start. I tried again. Nothing. A sickly smell filled the car, like smoke and ash. Emily whimpered. My wife slammed her hand against the dashboard, screaming, "Start!" And then the voices came. Not outside. Inside. Whispers spilled from the air vents, filling the car like a tide. They can't leave. They can't leave. Stay with us. Play with us. Oliver covered his ears. Emily shrieked. My wife pulled them close, eyes wild with fear. I bolted from the car, popped the hood, desperate to find the problem. But there was nothing wrong. The wires were intact. The battery was fine. Yet when I tried again, the key wouldn't even turn. That's when I saw it. In the reflection of the windshield, standing behind us on the porch, was the man in the hat. His arms hung loosely at his sides, his head tilted, watching. And just like that, the car locks clicked shut on their own. The children screamed. My wife pounded on the glass. I yanked at the handle, but it wouldn't budge. The whispers grew louder, drowning out their cries. The house loomed behind him, and for a terrible moment, it seemed to breathe, its shutters shuddering, the front door rattling, the roof groaning as though alive. We weren't leaving. Not today. Not ever. We abandoned the car. There was no choice. The locks wouldn't release, and the whispers were growing unbearable inside. I pulled my family back toward the house, back into the very thing we wanted to escape. It felt like defeat, like walking willingly into the jaws of a beast. Inside, the air was heavy, thick with dust and ash. My wife clutched Emily and Oliver close, her eyes darting to every corner. I went straight to the attic. The photo album was waiting for me. Open. Its brittle pages fluttered, though no wind stirred. I sank to the floor and turned them carefully, one after another. The story unfolded in black and white. Families, just like us, who had once lived here. Each set of photographs started the same. Smiling parents, children playing in the garden, the house looking alive with joy. But as the pages turned, the smiles faded. The children grew pale. Then came the scratches. The eyes marked out. The final images always the same. Children sitting stiffly at the dining table, their faces lifeless, their parents absent. I reached the last page. This time, there were no photographs. Only words, scrawled in the same black ink as before. The house keeps what is given. The children stay forever. My blood ran cold. Behind me, I heard the sound of footsteps. Small, quick, pattering across the attic floor. I swung the flashlight around. Children, not mine, not flesh and blood. Figures made of ash and shadow, their eyes hollow black pits, their forms flickering like smoke. They gathered around the circle of toys, whispering in unison. Stay with us, stay, forever. One of them bent down, picked up a burnt teddy bear, and held it out to me. Its porcelain face cracked into something resembling a smile. I stumbled back, my chest tight with panic. No, I rasped. You can't have them. The shadows only laughed. High, shrill, endless. Then from behind them, another figure emerged. Taller, broader, the wide-brimmed hat brushing the rafters. He stepped into the circle, and the children fell silent. He raised one long, skeletal hand and pointed. Not at me, at the stairs, at where my wife and children were waiting. I ran from the attic, heart hammering, the sound of laughter chasing me down the stairs like a swarm of insects. My wife stood at the bottom, clutching Emily and Oliver. They looked at me with terrified eyes, and I knew they'd felt it too. He's coming, Emily whispered, her voice shaking. I barely had time to answer before the temperature in the hallway plummeted. Our breath fogged in the air. The light bulbs overhead flickered, buzzing, then burst one by one in a shower of sparks. And then he was there, the man in the hat. He stepped out from the living room doorway, tall and impossibly thin, his face a void beneath the brim. His shadow stretched impossibly long across the floor, curling toward the children. Stay behind me, I shouted, pulling them back. My wife clung to them, sobbing. He took a step forward. The floorboards groaned as though bending beneath a weight far heavier than a man. Another step, and the air grew thick, pressing on my chest, choking me. The whispers rose all around us, dozens of voices chanting in a sickening harmony. They can't leave. They belong. They belong. Desperation took hold. I grabbed the only thing I could think of, the photo album I brought down from the attic. With a cry, I hurled it into the fireplace. The reaction was immediate. The whispers turned into screams. The shadows writhed across the walls. The children of Ash shrieked, their hollow eyes glowing faintly, as if in pain. But the man in the hat didn't falter. He raised his hand, fingers long as claws, and pointed at Emily. She screamed as her feet lifted from the ground, an unseen force pulling her toward him. No! I lunged forward, grabbing her legs, anchoring her with every ounce of strength. My wife and Oliver clung to her arms, all of us straining, fighting against that invisible pull. The man's shadow stretched, curling around us like smoke. His head tilted back, and though I couldn't see his face, I felt his grin. The flames in the fireplace roared higher, swallowing the album. Pages curled into ash, photographs blackened, ink bled away. The house shuddered. The screams grew deafening. For the first time, the man stepped back. Emily fell into my arms, sobbing. The shadow recoiled, twisting violently, as if tethered to the burning album. I knew then, destroying the past was the only way to break his hold. But the fire was dying fast, and I had only burned the album. The toys, the circle upstairs, still remained. After the attic fire, the house was quieter, but not safe. The whispers had stopped, temporarily, but the toys in the attic still waited, arranged in their sinister circle, eyes painted black, as if expecting us to return. I knew the man in the hat wasn't gone. He never truly left. That night, I made a decision. We couldn't stay another second. I had to destroy the toys, the circle, everything that tied the house to the children of the past. I dragged the children up to the attic, my wife holding tightly to Emily and Oliver. My hands shook as I lifted each toy, tossing them into a pile in the corner. Dolls with cracked faces, singed teddy bears, even the wooden train, all of it. The moment I struck the first match, the temperature in the room dropped. Shadows lengthened, writhing on the walls. A high-pitched laugh cut through the air. The man appeared at the edge of the attic, taller than the rafters, his hat brushing the beams. His fingers stretched toward us. No! I screamed. I threw the match into the pile. The toys ignited instantly, flames hungrily consuming each cursed object. The smell of burning fabric and old would fill the air. The shadows screamed, twisting violently as the fire grew. The man in the hat recoiled, his form distorting like smoke in a storm. The children's eyes were wide with fear, but I held them close. Then, with a deafening crack, the circle collapsed. The flames licked the ceiling, and a final shriek tore through the house as the man vanished into nothing. For the first time in weeks, silence returned. We didn't speak for a long while, sitting in the darkness, the only light the dying embers on the floor. The children clung to us, trembling but safe. By morning, we packed what little remained and left the house behind. We never returned. The old road swallowed it from view, overgrown and quiet, like it had never existed. Sometimes, when the wind blows just right, I swear I hear whispers in the trees. But Emily and Oliver are safe now, free to run in the sun without fear. The house still exists somewhere out there, waiting for the next family foolish enough to enter, waiting for someone else to add their photographs to the album. And I know, deep down, that the man in the hat will be waiting. Forever.